Hello world, my name is Lydia and thank you so much for clicking on this video today. As you probably know by now, the patch notes for Paladins OB42 came out last night. So in this video, we're just going to dive into the specifics of the patch notes and how it's going to affect you and your gameplay. Now, if you watched the patch preview show yesterday, you probably think, oh my gosh, this is just such a huge patch and there's a new champion and there's all these changes and oh my gosh. But when you look at the details, it's not that big of a deal. Yes, there are some additions, but as season 1 gets closer and closer, that's probably what Hi-Rez is going to be planning on. So there's just going to be a lot of small, minimal balance changes left and right. And if you remember the changes that came from OB41, which if you don't, you can click the video right here. But in OB41, more than anything, there were a lot of buffs that I kind of felt were a little unnecessary for certain champions, but that's just my personal opinion. I think the changes in OB42 are kind of leading up to how Hi-Rez wants Paladins to basically be formed going into season 1 and going into the full release of the game. Alright, enough of that. Let's get into the patch notes. So as you probably already know by now, we have a new champion, Torvald, who is the runic sage, and he is a frontliner. And if you're like me, you've probably been begging for a frontliner for so long now. We've just been adding damage dealers, and now it's nice to have a new role added to the realm. So real quick, let's look through his abilities. His left mouse button is Gauntlet, a channeled beam of runic energy that locks on and deals 50 damage every 0.1 second to a single target. That's really self-explanatory. One thing to note for this is I saw a lot through some of the gameplay that has been shown and some other people that have already been playing him on the PTS is that you don't necessarily need to be aimed perfectly at him. It kind of will jump to whichever enemy it's closest to deal that damage. So you don't have to have the perfect aim to be dealing that damage, but it kind of equals out because it only does 50 damage. I know it's for 0.1 second, so that sounds like it's just going to be really fast, but that kind of, the 50 damage kind of makes up for the fact that you don't have to have perfect aim for it. His right mouse button is Recharge. It regenerates 850 shield health per second for 2.5 seconds. Channeling on an enemy shield siphons 2000 shield health per second, regenerating your shield. So in case you didn't know by now, Torvald is surrounded by his own shield that stays there. And anytime damage is done to it, it obviously burns the shield down, but the shield doesn't recharge automatically. You have to use that right mouse button to recharge it. And the great thing about that too is that his right mouse button will also steal shields. So from Makoa or from Fernando, if they have their shield up, if you need charges on your shield, you can use your right mouse button. So that's going to be pretty awesome to see, because even if he isn't able to do a whole lot of damage, he can steal shields from other enemies. All right, his Q is Protection. It projects a 2000 health shield onto an ally for 2 seconds. Again, watching some of this gameplay on it, 2 seconds is a very short amount of time. Sometimes it can feel like a long time, but when it comes to this protection, it's a very short amount of time, especially if you put it onto an ally that's getting a lot of hate on them at one time. So this is going to be great to use to add to allies that are trying to basically run away. You don't want to use this when you're running into a fight, maybe at the last couple seconds of an overtime or something like that. I'm going to leave his ultimate until last. His F is Runic Blast. It shoots out a short blast that silences and disarms enemies for 1.5 seconds. I think this, on top of his ultimate ability, are going to be 2 of his strongest abilities. Something I didn't notice until I saw Rain Day's gameplay of it is that it can actually hit more than one enemy. Silence and disarms enemies. That's a big deal, because if they're all grouped on the point, you can throw it in there and it will disable them all for 1.5 seconds. Now, this silences them and disarms them, so they can't shoot, they can't do anything for 1.5 seconds. And 1.5 seconds is fairly a long time, especially if you're in overtime, if you're trying to push the payload, you know, stuff like that. So being able to disarm Androxus while he's trying to fly away, or Makoa while he's trying to dive in, you know, or something like that, that's going to be a pretty huge game changer. All right, his ult is Hyper Beam. It unleashes the latent power of your Gauntlet, channeling a blast that applies a massive knockback to all enemies for 2.35 seconds. When I first saw this and when I first read this, I didn't like it, and I didn't think it was as big of a deal as people were making out to be. But the more and more I watch it, the more and more I understand, because it doesn't do that much damage. I think it does just 50 damage per whatever second. But the knockback on it is massive. I can't even describe how massive the knockback is on it. And honestly, I can see them nerfing it maybe before it goes to the live servers or after it's been on the servers for a while. Just think about being in the last seconds on a spawn point or the last seconds pushing a payload, and Torvald charges his ult and just pushes everybody back in the last second. I feel like it's a little bit of an unfair advantage, but honestly, I haven't been able to play him on the PTS yet, so I can't really contest for that quite yet. I just know what the gameplay that I've seen. It's going to be a very strong ult. It's probably going to be one of the strongest ults in the game right now. So I'm not going to go over the specifics of the cards. There's a lot of numbers dealing with them. I'll probably go over those in a later video, but you can definitely go and check those out for yourself on the patch notes. Now, another huge addition in this patch is PvE mode. And for anybody that doesn't know, PvE is person versus environment. You can think of this like brawls. They're kind of separate game modes from the usual siege or payload mode. And the PvE are going to be weekly events, so the environment and the settings is going to change week to week. They're queued from casual, queue setting, and they'll give full match rewards. And what's really cool about these is they're not going to be easy at all to play. The one that they showed in the patch preview looked really hard. It was you as Makoa versus 5 other Makoas, and one of the Makoas had an extended hook, and another Makoa had extended damage, and another Makoa had something with a shield or something like that. And it's just going to be all sorts of crazy settings going into this PvE mode. But the other side of it is you're going to get these insane rewards for completing them. One thing they actually didn't mention in the preview is that they are raising the level cap from 500 to 999. So get your grind on is all I have to say. And a lot of the rest of these under general are just some minor fixes, some general things about music and radiant chests and stuff like that. Nothing too major. All right, moving to customizations. As we saw on HRX, we're getting the Code Green Victor Collection skins. You know, these are just the green plastic toy soldiers, you know, you see when you're a kid or in Toy Story. And so we kind of already saw these. I believe, yeah, there's 4 different variations of them, so that will be cool. That's one thing I kind of think the game is lacking is skin variations. So I really like that not only are they adding this green toy soldier Victor, but they're adding 4 different versions of it. So in OB41, they added a mode for you to queue up and be able to play through test maps, new maps that they're bringing, or changes to old maps that they're trying to make. So that was introduced in the last patch, and it looks like here that they're adding some more to that. They're adding Ice Mines redo. I remember seeing a tweet about this, and they're adding a new map called Stride. And then there are some updates on everything that's currently on the test maps. All right, let's get to the good stuff. Some balance updates. I know everyone, including myself, will be so excited to hear that aggression has been completely removed from the game. They said they're thinking about making some changes to it. Personally, I don't think it needs to come back. It can just stay away so everyone can give a golf clap to Hi-Rez for finally listening to our outcries and removing aggression. The cost of Life Rip and Rejuvenate has changed. Okay. Bomb King got a little bit of a change with his sticky bombs. Increased his minimum damage from worst case explosion fall off from 15 to 30% max damage, and it increased the radius from 9 to 10 units. This is just a minor nerf. When you think of Bomb King and when you play him, you think, oh, he's going to have this massive AoE damage and he's just going to be such a CC damage dealer. But when you really look at him and you really get able to play him, his bombs are really only very effective with single target damage. So increasing the explosion fall and increasing the explosion radius will kind of give you more of a feel of being able to use him as more of an AoE champion and be able to deal more AoE damage. A lot of these other ones are pretty minor changes, just fixing issues and bugs. Now, moving to Maldamba, with Spitting Cobra, his target stunned by the snake toss cannot be stunned again for 3 seconds. If you've ever played against the Maldamba like I have, it's pretty annoying getting basically constantly stunned by Snake Toss back to back. So with this, you can't stun the same target twice for another 3 seconds. So this is a little bit of a nerf, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense because it's quite annoying getting stunned by that constantly. Pip's potion launcher got increased minimum damage from worst case explosion fallout from 15 to 35%. I think this will change a little bit the way that Pip is played, not so much as a healer, but more as a utility for the team. Yeah. Oh, more Tyra changes. Why? So if you remember from the last patch in OB41, Tyra got a little bit of a buff where her health pool got upped from 2200 to 2400, and now it looks like they just want to buff her even more. Her minimum accuracy is getting increased from 85 to 89%, and her increased accuracy loss per shot from 28 to 3%. Okay, so this isn't that big of a buff. It equals out because her accuracy loss per shot is getting increased. It may only be by 2%, but it still is getting changed. So while her accuracy overall is getting buffed, every time you shoot, your accuracy is going to be worse after you start shooting your auto rifle. The reason that I love Tyra. Now, don't get me wrong. I am a one-trick Tyra. But I feel like the hitboxes in the game are already damaging enough. And I already feel like Tyra is a very strong enough champion right now that I think increasing her accuracy is a little bit unnecessary. Now, if they had increased it to 91, I'm literally just throwing that number out of nowhere, but if they had increased it a little bit more, I said, oh, you're just ridiculous, Hi-Rez, you're just trying to make Tyra just far too OP than she should be right now. But 89 I can live with. I just kind of feel like, especially with upping her health pool from the last patch and now upping her accuracy, I kind of feel like that might be a little bit unnecessary right now for her as a champion. She's already strong enough. Just don't go, just stop. Just don't go too far. All right, last but not least, Victor's ultimate barrage reduced the time it takes for barrage strike to hit from 1 to 0.75 seconds. I think this will be a very pleasant change. 1 to 0.75 seconds isn't that much, but I think you'll be able to tell a difference because when Victor uses barrage, he's left fairly vulnerable. And even from the time you start your ult to the time the first strike hits, you're still left fairly vulnerable. So I like kind of quicking this up and not making it so that Victor can use it a little more often and a little more safely. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this patch review. Thank you so much for clicking on this video today. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up down below and subscribe. What do you think about these patch notes? How is it going to affect you? What do you think about the changes? What do you think about Torvald? Do you like him? Do you not like him? Do you want different types of champions in the game? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.